just one.
Wait until the meeting now, Richard.
There's me. Why an American accent?
Zoom is an American platform.
Oh, dear.
Because I said so.
Okay, we've got a couple of minutes before the start of the meeting.
Facebook's live.
So just before we start, are you still going ahead with muting everybody, or are you just going to? Because sometimes it's a bit difficult for people to unmute.
I'm going to mute everyone and get Jill to unmute them when I say their name to speak.
Would you like me to mute everyone now?
Yeah, might as well start because we're starting in a minute. Can they unmute themselves?
No.
Okay.
I said it that they can't, but that like you just did, they get asked to unmute them.
Okay, because that can cause a little bit of a delay.
I can change it. I can
Yes,
change
please.
that, I think.
I want them to be able to unmute themselves when I say their name.
Okay,
Otherwise...
I'll just change it. There you go. That should be that way around now.
So once I say your name, you can unmute yourselves for the meeting, if that's okay with everyone.
Yeah, I'll make it 9:30, Chairman.
Okay, so I'd like to start the meeting of the full council for Bletchley and Fenny Stratford. Welcome everybody, and to those residents listening on Facebook. Okay, if we could start the meeting, we would like to note apologies.
Apologies for absence from Councillor Rolfe.
Okay, no further apologies. So we'll move on to the approve the minutes from the previous full council meeting. Okay, just gonna have to scroll again because it's logged me out of my Gov. Sorry. Okay, so we do page 1. Is everybody happy with that? Yep. Okay, so we now move to members' declarations of interest. Any?
Councillor Kelly Wilson.
Thank you, Chairman. Item 7.1 on the agenda. I know the applicant who also lives in Newton Lees, and I have been involved in negotiating council the Newton Lees Pavilion premises. I don't think it would be appropriate for me to be involved in any discussion or debate or decision about that item.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Kelly Wilson. Okay.
Chairman, if I could just draw attention to the fact that I've admitted Debbie Scott from Youth Network MK to the meeting. She's here to speak on a later agenda item.
Okay, I would also just like to point out that the Town Council, where I've done the link to the agenda, has now logged me out and says error, page unavailable. So I'm now going to revert to the other method of looking at the agenda. So it might take a little bit longer. Okay, to move on to the minutes from committee meetings and to approve any recommendations. First, we have the draft minutes from the meeting from Finance held on the 11th of August. I understand this meeting was chaired by Councillor Hume. So if Councillor Hume has anything to raise from that meeting.
Yeah, there's 2 items that need to be the Finance Committee resolved to recommend to the full council. One of them being, the first one being the draft investment policy. So yeah, that's the first item that has been resolved to recommend. It's goes into details about how we use our funds and reserves, and where they're stored and the options that we have with them.
Okay, so does anyone have any questions about that? Okay, shall we move that recommendation from finance? All those in favour? Anyone against? Anyone abstaining? Councillor William Hewitt, I can't see you to know whether you're voting. Councillor William Hewitt? You're voting for it? Okay, so I have that as everybody voted for that recommendation from finance.
Thank you.
And then there was the second recommendation, which was based on the draft investment policy and looking at how much money we've got in reserves. The Finance Committee thought it would be wise that the full council seek specialist financial advice to assist with managing its funds in the best interest of the community. So the resolution was to that the full council seeks to appoint a financial advisor, a specialist financial advisor.
Okay, does anybody have any questions on that? Okay, again, I will move to vote. All those in favour of the recommendation from the Finance Committee? Okay, anybody against? Anybody abstaining? Councillor Graham, I haven't got you agreeing or not agreeing. You're for it, are you? Okay, so I have that as everybody for that recommendation. Thank you. Okay, we'll now move on to public speaking. I don't believe we've got anyone.
No request to speak, Chairman.
Okay, we'll move on to item 6 to review planning applications due to be determined by Milton Keynes Council. Okay, the first one is in Dominican Grove, Newton Lees. It's a proposal for a rear garden shed. Does anybody have any comments on that? Shall we leave it as no comments? Okay, I shall move on to the next item. Okay, the land at Eaton Lees, Galley Lane, Little Brickhill. Okay, does anybody have any comments on this?
Councillor Hume.
Yeah, I mean, it's a straightforward discharge of conditions. However, someone has brought to my attention that at that junction, as you enter into Eaton Lees, the speed limit the signs are for 30 miles per hour for the estate. However, that doesn't fit with the plans of any new estate in Milton Keynes, which should be 20 miles per hour. So can we feed that back as a comment to the planning team? Apart from that, there's nothing to say. It's a straightforward discharge of conditions.
Okay, is everybody okay with that? Councillor O'Rourke? Can't hear you, Eamon.
There you go.
Okay.
Is the 20-mile-an-hour speed limit, can you enforce it? Can you be fined for it? You can be fined if you go over 30 in a 20-mile-an-hour zone, but I'm not sure that it's enforceable. It's only advisory.
Thank you, Councillor O'Rourke. I think Councillor Graham wanted to speak. No?
No, sorry, I thought we was going to go for the vote. Sorry, that's my fault.
Okay. Does anybody else wish to speak? Okay, could you just for me clarify exactly what you want to put forward, Councillor Hughes?
So it's a comment to the planning department that the signs that have gone up for the speed limit for the new estate do not match the policy of 20 miles per hour for new estates in Milton Keynes.
Thank you. Is everybody happy for that to go forward as a comment? All those in favour? Okay, anybody against? Anybody abstaining? I've got one abstention and I have everyone else for that comment to go to planning. Now, As I just said, I've lost my agenda, but according to the notes I have here, I don't have an item 7.
Sorry, there was an error on the numbering. That's my fault. We skipped number 8, please.
Okay, that's all right. I was just making sure because I'm flicking screens here. Thank you for clarification. Okay, the next is to consider the progress report of the planning of Christmas illuminations 2020. I understand Jill Long will be speaking on this.
Oh, I can't find it. It's gone.
Okay, Jill.
Yeah, this is just an update on some information we found out recently and with the work we've been doing with the Milton Keynes Council and their contractor. A lot of the street lamps have now been reviewed and are either have been replaced and repaired, or they're going to between now and November. So it gives us the opportunity to have actually more lights up, because we normally don't put lights on all our lamps because some of them are damaged and they can't take it. So the report is just telling us where the illuminations can go, which streets we can do and which illumination columns we can do, what the costs are. So if we were able to do every single column, that would cost the £15,040, of which the budget is exactly 15,000 currently. And that's the sort of, the picture shows the sort of thing that will go on the lamp post. It's not exactly that, but it's similar to what we normally have anyway. So we've managed to get working really well with both the contractors and both the council. And once we get agreement, I can then go and order them and arrange them to be put up, and then arrange for the other testing to be done by the council. Lights in trees, though. Milton Keynes Council did suggest that we may be able to use the MKC owned market pillars to do lights in trees. They'll need further works to be done to them, and installation of isolation switches. However, there are some things that will probably make it quite difficult to do. The trees were due to be pollarded in February. They haven't been. That's been delayed now until October or November is the only date we've been given. Normally we put our lights up in November, so we haven't got a date for that. And I'll be honest, I'm not sure that if we get given a date that they'll necessarily stick to it. So if we went and put lights up in the trees and the council wanted to pollard them, we'd have to take them down again. We need to get permission from Milton Keynes Council to use the trees as we would do normally, and I think the last conversation we had with them, they would not be willing to give that because of the restrictions of growth. The market pillars are only in one part of the high street down one side, and they're not equally spaced out, so I think any lights in trees may look a bit uneven and a bit wonky. And if the market were to go back to its original location later this year, then those poles would need to be used for the markets, and therefore the tree lights wouldn't be able to go up. There is a quote there for the tree lights, the sort of thing which is called like a mistletoe ball, and they recommend you to have between 4 and 6 in each tree. They're about £800 to install per tree. So the trees, I think, definitely can't have what we had last year, unfortunately, even though they looked beautiful, because we can't get them back up again, and we haven't got the ability to have the isolations on them. So it's really a question about what we're going to do. And then the other part about the illuminations is about the Christmas tree on the Stanier Square. We normally go for a Nordic spruce, I believe, which is like almost like a conifer, which can be a bit floppy. The alternative is to go for a Nordic fir, which would look like almost like a normal Christmas tree. They are slightly more expensive, but we've got some quotes so far. So one would be just under 1,900 and one would be under 1,700, which is about the same cost as last year's. So they haven't gone up. That would be from a different supplier. But that can still go up. And then really the last thing is about the wooden shapes, is to make a decision on what we want to do with regards to the wooden shapes. So there are a number of decisions that I'd like the council to consider for this evening, which are to discuss and decide if officers are to continue arrangements for the Christmas lights on the lamp columns as described. to discuss and decide if the council want to consider lights in the trees in Queensway, based on all the things we've said, or alternatively wait until next year when the trees have been pollarded, and then look to see what we can do next year. What type of Christmas tree do we want to have? And to decide whether or not we want to go and buy some wooden shapes as we did last year for the children in the schools to do. It went down really well last year. They loved doing them.
Okay, just a question I have before I throw it open to the councils, just for clarification. So Milton Keynes Council said you can use the market columns.
Yeah, one of their officers suggested they could be adapted. They could be adapted.
But then to come back with all the reasons why you couldn't use those columns for the lights in the trees.
Well, no, it's a different department have said, well, you've got the highways department saying these could be adapted with some isolation switch and you can use them. Then you've got the tree department saying, we don't want you putting tree lights in the trees because it's going to affect the growth and we're going to pollard them. So they're two different departments that weren't in the same meeting at the same time. And one has just given us an option, but then landscaping, I think you'll find, will come back and say we're due to pollard in October, November, which then could turn into November, December. Okay, and they won't want to pollard when the trees have got lights in them.
Okay, so they do contradict each other.
They do contradict each other because there's two different departments that weren't in the same meeting.
Okay, so overall, what we're saying is we can't have them in trees. I'll open it up to the councillors to decide, but we can't have it in trees. Also, on the second point about the Christmas tree, just before we decide on which one, we had that sponsored last year. Is that sponsorship lined up for this year?
No, we haven't spoken to anyone about sponsor. Last year's sponsorship, they approached us and offered it to us because they were looking to build a home, one of their homes in the local area. I don't believe that's going ahead anymore, so they may not be willing to do that this year. Doesn't mean to say we can't do it, but the budget for the Christmas tree is part of the Christmas event budget, which is obviously unlikely to go ahead.
Okay, that's okay. I just want to make sure that councillors are aware of what we've got to pay for.
Chairman, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we can't hear you at the moment.
Oh, sorry. Is it gone again?
It went again. Yeah, it did go again.
Okay, so
that's better. That's better.
I'm leaning right forward now.
Thank you.
Okay, so I was just summarising the fact that Milton Keynes Council on one hand said you can use the columns, but on the other hand said you can't put them in the trees because we're going to pollard them. And
I think if I can just speak, I think we can go and negotiate with the tree officer.
Okay, that sounds more.
But you know, it's not ruled out. But I think Jill's pointed out the challenges. If we use the feeder pillars, they're only on one side of Queensway, and we still need them for the market. If the market is
relocated,
is happening or is relocated to the other end, we will need the feeder pillars at the Stanier Square end for the market traders.
Now to throw it out to councillors for them to debate and make a decision. Councillor Hume.
I think I'll start. I'll kick off. First of all, I think it's worth saying regarding the lighting columns. Actually, the work that I know Delia and Jill have put into changing that situation from where we were a few months ago, I think it's actually really appreciated. And actually, Milton Keynes Council making those changes to those columns so that we are able to have those Christmas lights. I think actually, I was worried a few months ago. I'm a lot more relaxed. I'm a lot more relieved now about that. So I just wanted to just say that bit of appreciation. In terms of the lights in the tree, I'm not that. I think if we can only do it in a few trees on one side of the road, I don't think it's worth it. I think it will look. I don't think it will look great, and therefore either we light all the trees, or which we can't do, or we light none of them. It's kind of my thinking on that. I would love to see all the trees lit, but I think the practicalities, I think we know where we are with that. I think it will look odd, and if the pillars need to be used for other things, then it comes into an issue. I'm not an expert on trees, and I'm not even going to try and say which tree I prefer. But I definitely welcome the use of the shapes again. I think that went down so well last year. So yeah, any decisions this year, I think as many of the lampposts as we can, and have the shapes. And I don't mind which tree.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hume. Okay, does anyone else wish to speak? Okay, Councillor O'Rourke.
As long as the kids think it's all right, then it should go ahead. It doesn't matter what the adults think about the trees. It's doing it for the kids. That's all it's all for. So I think you should light up as much as you can.
Okay, thank you, Councillor O'Rourke. Anybody else? Okay, Councillor Kelly Wilson.
I echo lots of the points that Councillor Hume has said. I think that we still don't at this moment know whether the guidance will allow us to have a Christmas event, but we should do as much as we can to make the town centres look very pretty.
Okay, Councillor Ely. You need to unmute.
I just had a week holiday up in Yorkshire, and just as an aside, to show what a positive attitude can do, there are trees in the market squares in Ripon, North Allerton, and elsewhere in Yorkshire, which have got lighting cables coming from adjacent columns into the trees, and then cables from one set of trees to another, and that's Yorkshire County Council. Now, if they can do it, why the devil can't Milton Keynes? Is it a different law? Is there a Yorkshire law and a Milton Keynes law? I don't think so. It really, if people go into these things with a positive attitude, then they can come out with a positive result. And at the moment, we're not getting that. I totally agree with what other councillors have said. Let's do the maximum possible. Let's have a decent Christmas tree, but one that sticks up in the air rather than droops. So I think that's the more expensive one, and so be it. But let's push them as hard as we can. And about the pollarding, you can do pollarding in January and February. They haven't got to do it in October and November. It's again, that is an indication of the negative attitude that we're getting. Thank you, Chair. I'll mute myself now.
Thank you, Councillor Ely. Okay, does anyone else wish to speak?
Could I speak, Chair,
Yes.
please? Sorry, I can't put my hand up electronically because I can't. I just want to remind members that we agreed that the costs that Gills obtained are from our existing provider as an extension to contract, because we weren't able to go for a full tendering process this year because of the uncertainty about the lighting stock at the time when we would have gone to full tender. So just to remind members that this will be an extension to our existing 3-year contract with our existing provider.
Okay, thank you.
Which previously council indicated they were happy with, but I just want to remind everyone.
Okay, thank you. I'm trying to speak up really loud and come right close to the screen, which might be a bit scary for some people, but it seems to be the only way my mic is working. Okay, so from what I'm hearing from councillors is, one, we want to go for lights in the trees and for the officers to try and negotiate that with Milton Keynes Council, so we can get that done. Secondly, I'm hearing that we want a tree and we want a good tree, so it is likely to be the more expensive tree. And thirdly, we want to go with the children's blocks again for the trees. Councillor Hume, if I forgot anything. Mute, got it muted again. Yeah.
Just a question on the finance. I know that if we have, and if we can, let's have all the trees. But if it does happen, then that will potentially take us over that £15,000 budget. What I would suggest as the council is actually we know the Christmas event is not likely to take the same form this year, that actually we potentially could look at using some of those funds to cover that cost for certainly for this year.
Yes, and I think that's got to be put on the end of that. If the cost is more than we have in the budget, then we take it from the cost of the event. Okay, is everybody happy with that? Do I have a agreement from everyone? I will go to the vote, but I think I need it seconded.
Sorry, Chairman, just a small amendment.
Yeah.
Which I think, which Ed originally said. Can we go for all trees or no trees? Because I think if we cannot negotiate to alter the power supplies or to convince them to let the power supplies run from the columns to the trees, what we don't want is a lopsided display.
Okay, is everybody happy with that? I'm quite happy with that. Councillor Kenworthy.
Seconder to Daniel on that.
Okay.
Ethan's sense. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So is everyone happy with that? All those in favour of those agreements? Okay. Anybody abstaining? One abstention. Anybody against? I've got one against. And then I have everyone else for it. So that is carried. Thank you. Sorry, I've got to go back to my list. Okay, so that's the tree elimination. So we now go to item 9, to agree a response to a consultation from Milton Keynes Council. Okay, I understand that the clerk unfortunately hasn't able to prepare a draft response on the SPD planning obligations, but she would like. I've gone wrong.
No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I was just going to say, I mean, I've put them on the agenda at the first possible opportunity. The next full council meeting is on the 29th of September, and the consultations close on the 30th of September. So theoretically, a response can be agreed on the 29th. But it seemed important to put them on the agenda now, because feedback from members is required. It's not what I think about the SPDs. It's what you think.
Okay, so should we do the planning obligation one first? Any feedback? And then I'll do the impact assessment separately. Every time I look at my agenda, I have to take you all off the page. It's really strange. So has anybody got any comments? Councillor Hume.
I'm not. I want to comment more fully, and probably at the next full council. Actually, I think I would welcome that. But I just want to the first thing that strikes me about this whole SPD is actually it feels as though we've got a better framework. It feels a more transparent framework for how we can get what S106 funds can be used for, and what things we should be looking at. So I think in that, I think it's actually really good, and it prompts me to just think about what we should do as a council when we have planning applications, and that is to make sure that we are looking at that and considering those areas where there is going to be an impact on the wider community, or any impact on the community, and actually under those headings and see and make recommendations to Milton Keynes Council's planning department. I think we need to be doing that more in our planning when we review planning applications, to ensure that we know our community the best. Well, we know our community quite well, very well, most of us. So we tend to know where those impacts are going to be. So I think that's just my comments for now. I don't want to comment on the detail. I'll feedback some comments so we can draft that into a full response in the next meeting. But I just want to point those things out.
Thank you, Councillor Hume. Does anybody else have any points they want to raise?
Councillor Kelly Wilson has his hand up.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Kelly Wilson.
So I was going to say, generally a good document. However, the thing that I find concerning, if you follow the diagram, it looks like there is some pre-negotiation with developers before there's any consultation with town and parish councils. And so my concern is actually you get to when the section 106 is being discussed, it's a done deal. And I think in many places that Bletchley and Fenny Stratford has had a lot of development, particularly in Newton Lees. And when the Section 106 was renegotiated for Newton Lees in 2015, actually what was added were lots of things that aren't even in our parish. So contribution to a future university, contributions to kind of other things which are all well and needed, but where is the opportunity for this council to discuss what is needed for our local parish? And there are plenty of needs here too.
Okay. Thank you very much for that, Councillor Kelly-Wilson. Does anybody else wish to put anything forward? Okay, Councillor O'Rourke. I think he's having difficulty unmuting.
I'm mute now. Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to support what Councillor Kelly-Wilson said, because we have literally, since I've been on the council past 13, 14 years, lost hundreds of thousands in 106 money. Stone and McCarthy, the flats down by the canal, all went out of our parish. So he's absolutely right. We should have it spent here.
So that's a strong recommendation to go on our reply.
Yep.
Okay. So there's some points for the clerk to put together for our reply. Has anybody else got anything they want to add? Okay.
So then, could I please ask for as many comments in writing as possible over the next fortnight, please, if that's possible, so that I can compose a response ready for the next meeting.
So is that the also the impact assessment?
The health impact assessment. I
Yep.
don't know if anyone's got any comments on that, but yes, I do need feedback on that one as well, so that I know the mind of council.
Okay, has anybody got any comments they want to share now, or they want to feed them into the clerk? Councillor Kelly-Wilson.
Again, thank you, Chairman. We have a number of issues in Bletchley and Fenny Stratford. Naturally, the trend is there are more doctor surgeries that have closed down over the last 2 or 3 years, and literally every surgery is complaining that their list is too long. I think that I have not seen any evidence of any development of any health services in Bletchley and Fenny Stratford, or even West Bletchley. And I know that there is a £1.6 million in Section 106 money for a site in Newton Lees for a health surgery. Where's the health surgery? And what I'm really worried about is that it's going to end up being used elsewhere, and it's not going to fit in with our goals of being sustainable and climate change, because currently you've got a big development in Newton Lees, which is completely underserved by medical services, and everyone has to drive out of Newton Lees elsewhere to go and get them. And I'd really like to see that health impact assessment assess the impact of the Newton Lees development in terms of the health economy.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Kelly-Wilson. Does anybody else wish to put anything in? Not saying anything, so if you can all give your written opinions and ideas to Delia, that would be greatly appreciated. Can you all still hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yes, okay, good. Okay, so we're moving on now to item 10 to see a report on the progress on the Newton Lees allotments. I understand you have an update for us, Delia.
Yes, it's an oral report because I've been speaking to Taylor Wimpey up until today. There was a site visit. We were notified by Taylor Wimpey that they were asked again if we would accept the transfer of the land on Monday, and we did because some landscaping works have been completed. We did a site visit on Monday and switched the water on, only to find that the remediation to the pipework and the taps that we'd been told about was completely unsatisfactory. As soon as the water was switched on, there was one tap, which was just a sort of running river. And I sent a video tape of that to Taylor Wimpey. The making good was more or less satisfactory, but the big issue is the water. The landscaping works would not be too expensive to put right ourselves, although of course I don't see why the town council should. But until this water issue is resolved, we are completely stuck. I have sent a number of emails, and I have a call booked tomorrow with Taylor Wimpey to progress the matter further. They've been left in no doubt about how strongly the town council feels about this further delay. And you know, there's been a lot of correspondence between us over the past month, but this is the position that we're still in, I'm afraid.
Okay. Councillor Hume. Muted again, Councillor Hume. That's all right.
There we go. It's really disappointing to hear this. It's frustrating. There's been residents who've been on that waiting list for a couple of years. And it just speaks of how Taylor Wimpey treats what they do. It's not just the allotments in this community, it's the delays to play parks, it's the delays to football pitches, it's all of this stuff. And actually it's also people's homes. The amount of things I hear about the snagging and issues around that estate, it's just dreadful. And it's just not great for, there's lots of good things about Newton Leys, but Taylor Wimpey have been a major issue. And I don't know what else to say. I'm pleased that you've written strongly to them, but we want these allotments. We want it for the next season. And if we don't get them, is there any form of compensation that we can seek from Taylor Wimpey?
No.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hume. Okay, does anyone else wish to speak? Councillor Kelly Wilson.
As everyone knows, I live in Newton Leys. I'm in my second house in Newton Leys. And I echo some of the comments. I think that people in Newton Leys just want Taylor Wimpey to finish one thing. You know, we've got a lovely lake here, which is the centrepiece of Newton Leys. You might know it as Jubilee Lake. It's now called Willow Lake. But where are the benches? You know, the lake's been there for 10 years. It's been, the pathways have been, you know, I've been here 7 years this November. The pathways have been in place for 7 years. Still no benches. I think that it feels like sometimes one part of Taylor Wimpey doesn't speak to another, and there are you know, different contractors that they don't know what they're doing. I think some of the issues that have happened this year, Taylor Wimpey will blame on furlough and lots of people, but I think I'm looking at other sites, and I drive past Eton Leys very often, and I cannot believe how that development looks from the A4146 already, and there's not a single occupant. So I think that I agree, we need to come back very strongly on Taylor Wimpey, and there's lots of great things they've done about Newton Leys, but we just need to get the community assets finished and handed over, because you know, we're quite a way through the development.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Kelly Wilson. So I think all in all, it's just a strong trace up of Taylor Wimpey, as you've been doing, Delia, and maybe bring it back to the next meeting to see how we've progressed.
Will do.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we're now moving on. Just bring up my thing to consider the proposal from YNMK to review the provision for Youth Network Programme for the remainder of 2020 and 2021. And we've got Debbie Scott with us today. So did you want to speak first, Debbie, about this?
Yes, I saw in the minutes that I think you've already thought about it, haven't you? It didn't sound too positive. all I was thinking was that if we put everything under one banner, so we still deliver the 3 clubs as we're granted to do in the areas of Newton Lees, Lakes Estate and Central Bletchley, Fenny Stratford. But we put all the provisions, all the extra provisions that we do under the one banner, which will enable us to use our grant as leverage for bringing in money for additional activity. What we want to get to, we want to be able to meet any need as it arises. And when young people come up with ideas of what they'd like to do, we'd like to be able to make that happen. And we want to work towards having something every night, or at least 4 nights a week, and then something maybe on a Saturday, and also to extend into the holidays. So basically we're offering provision for any young people that are interested. It's all open access on that basis. Just would really help us with fundraising. And that's it really.
Okay, that's lovely, thank you. I'll move to Councillor Kelly Wilson.
I think what's really, so I think the work that you guys do is great, and the feedback that we have from lots of people across the parish, it's really well appreciated, and particularly in Newton Lees, I think that you came into work in Newton Lees when there was literally nothing going on here. So thank you for that. For me, I think it's really important. I'm not sure what you mean by putting it all under one banner, but I think for me, I think it's really important for this to be a Bletchley and Fenny Stratford Town Council service rather than a grant. I think we should be commissioning you to deliver a service on our behalf, and I think that from previous meetings, most councillors agreed where at the moment we need to invest more because it's something that people cannot afford, and we know that there is a link between the youth being worked with, and kind of where that happens, there is a fall in incidents kind of elsewhere, and it's good for everybody. But and I'd be happy to come back of a plan, but what I just don't want to do is hand over all of the money and for you to do as you'd like. What I'd like to see is a plan. A quarter of it is going to be spent on this, a quarter of it is going to be spent on this, and actually maybe a quarter is actually for us to decide in agreement with the people. But I'd just like to see more of a plan that we could sign up to with more deliverables.
Okay, that's lovely. Thank you, Councillor Kelly Wilson. I think one of the things that I think is important is that we actually have a service level agreement that shows what's happening, how it's happening, where it's happening, and what we're actually supporting, so we can show what we're doing. And I know that in Fenny Stratford you were delivering some services, but that hasn't been happening now. I was just wondering if you've got any plans to bring stuff back to Fenny Stratford for the youth. And also one of the key things that I'm really, really keen on is the town council getting recognition for the stuff that we support, and that's really important to us because we do support the youth and your organisation, and we would definitely want the recognition for that, for our logo to be on things. And I know sometimes it isn't, so if we could just make sure that that's in place, that would be great. I think that's some points that I wanted to raise. Has anybody got anything they want to raise on this? Councillor, is it Councillor Roham?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can now, thank you.
I just want to ask the respected lady that do they have any plan or any program for the legs specifically in the Serpentine Court, for the youth program, anything like that?
Yes, we've been running a lot of clubs in the Warren on Serpentine Court. Actually, that's been we've had some difficulties over the last year with young people misbehaving around there, and then subsequent issues with police. So actually, we're considering moving some of that provision to the community centre. Do you know where that is? By Leon?
Yes,
By
I
the
know
school?
that is. Yes, I know that is. Yeah. Can I just ask if you don't mind, how is it improving in terms of the youngsters' youth activities? I mean, what other ways can we help them rather than moving? I know that you're moving to other places. Specifically on the Warren or in the part of the shopping mall, we have a lot of issues here. How can we improve those youngsters or any other individual come and engage with you and work with you for long term?
Well, we have done an awful lot of work. We've been out into the community, we've been doing outreach, we've been finding young people where they are, you know, just on the streets and talking things through with them. But everything came to a head and they just didn't want to come to Serpentine Court. Some didn't want to come because they were frightened of getting caught for doing something or other. Others didn't want to come because of some of the young people that hang around there. So we're not leaving the Warren. We're going to continue our mental health project there. So we'll carry on with the outreach, talking to the kids that are hanging around, but there's fewer and fewer hanging around there. So, you know, if we're not finding them, we're not able to do anything. So we will keep the mental health project there, and we will continue to do the outreach. But our plan is to move to another venue where parents feel happier for their young people to come.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, thank you then, Councillor Roham.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, Debbie, could you just tell me what's happening with the Fenny Stratford?
Sure. Well, we've been running the art project in the art gallery, Tecton Art Gallery, been there for quite a long time now. And we did a project with the railway so that you can see all the paintings that they did. They did 3 in the end, which are at Fenny Stratford railway station. The problem is it was older young people. The space only takes up to, well, it'll be obviously a lot less now, but the space only took up to about 15 young people. So our our choices are to go back to George Street. There were issues with that, and we've been at Tecton, I think, Delia, is it a couple of years?
Yes, at least 2 years, yeah.
At least 2 years. So, but those young people are getting older. So our choices are to go back to George Street and try again there. There were a lot of comments at that time that it was really dark down those streets and people weren't comfortable coming there. So that it's always an issue, is where to go in Fenny. Our other idea was to do something on a Saturday and to base it from the library when time permits, because I know that the library is used for other things. But we're looking at doing, before we shut down, our plan was to do a photography project, which would be based around Fenny Stratford's got a lot of people that are interested in sort of the history of the area. So we wanted to look at all the old pictures that, you know, we've got sort of the heritage pictures, and do a project based on the young people going and photographing those same areas now and doing a kind of then and now exhibition. So yes, we're not quite sure. I mean, you know, if the councillors have any ideas of what we do in Fenny, we'd be really grateful, because we have looked at, so we've looked at the library, we've looked at doing something in the cafe down there. We tried to get into the Masons, we couldn't. They had gone into big weddings and stuff. It's too expensive. So yes, so that's where we've got to, is we thought we would do a project in central Bletchley, and see if we can build up from there. And to answer your other question about the logos, that's the whole reason for what I'm saying, because at the moment we run the clubs for you, the 3 clubs for you. We also run the football at Leon, we run the mental health project, we run a junior club at the Warren. So we've got sort of lots of other bits and pieces going on, and sometimes what happens is that we get funding from somewhere and we have to put those funders' logos on the leaflet, and we don't want to do that anymore. We just want to put your logo everywhere. We want to say, you know, you are our main supporter in this area, you're our main funder, and we want you everywhere. And we thought this was a way of doing it, really. So it wouldn't make a difference to the provisions you're paying for. It just would mean it would be, you'd be seen as, you know, as part of the whole thing, everything we're doing, which just makes more sense to us.
So
somehow.
that would then beggar towards my service agreement of our expectations and what you're delivering, and have it formally recognised that way, and then we would be able to account for the money being spent then in that manner as well. And I hope that answers Councillor Kelly Wilson's question, but would you like to go ahead, Councillor Kelly
I
Wilson?
was just going to say exactly the same thing, Chair, and I think that actually what I would then propose we do is we pull the, you know, there's some that's funded from the budget, some that's funded from grants. I'd actually take it all out and have it all, you know, as a contract that we can that can be managed under a service level agreement, as you said, all in the one place.
Okay. Councillor Ely?
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the provision of the services that are provided, but from what the members have been saying, it's quite extensive and quite well received. I think that we've said for some time now that I think that we've been looking to improve and have more youth services supplied by us because we think it's money well spent. I would have hoped that the service agreement idea, I think, is the way forward, where we can get specific proposals from the youth club and centres. But I think also, taking on board what's been said, is that it needs also some balancing figure that can be used at short notice when it's discovered what some of the younger people want during the year, and therefore money can be diverted from that sort of a balancing fund into those activities. I don't think that we are embarrassed for cash, and I don't think we should be embarrassed by saying that we would put additional funds into the services that are being provided. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Ely. Councillor Hume? Councillor Hume, I think.
Hume.
I've done it again today. I'm not very good on my mute button today, so apologies for that. I think I agree with lots of what's been said. I think it's really important that actually, if kids have ideas, that actually there is a way that we can put some money aside that is easy to get hold of and to act on those quickly if they're sensible and they work. They work. But I do definitely think we do need a service level agreement. I think it's really important for the transparency and the accountability that we have to the taxpayers of Bletchley and Fenny Stratford. But I think it needs to be a bit more dynamic in terms of how we fund initiatives or ideas that you have, the young people. But I would also just like to say thank you for all the work that you do and all of the youth workers that you work with our young people.
Thank you, Councillor Hume.
And
Okay.
could I just say really quickly, thank you so much for the Caldicott. It's been absolutely amazing. We've got a video apparently today of all the young people splashing around in the water. So I will get that up on Facebook as soon as possible. But it's just been incredible. You know, even in this weather, we've had lots of contingency plans and we've just continued. And the people at Caldicott have been great. So thanks very much. It's really much appreciated by all the young people and their families. The kids go home absolutely exhausted every night. So yeah, thanks very much for that.
That's lovely. Thank you, Debbie, for that feedback. It is appreciated. And yeah, we as a council, we thank you for all the work you do in our area with youth. It is important. So I've heard lots of things around the table. I think we need to get together a motion or a proposal for this round a service level agreement. I don't know anyone who's had any thoughts on how to put that motion together.
Could I just butt in?
Yeah.
I think Debbie and I can work on a service level agreement, which could be brought to the next council meeting. but meanwhile, I think Debbie will need some sort of commitment in terms of the funding for the 2 youth clubs that are going to go ahead in September, everything being equal, at the Lakes Community Centre and at Newton Lees. So I think any resolution needs to authorise
Those two.
the spending for those 2 clubs in the way that we would have done had we not been changing anything, so
Okay,
that Debbie's got that security going forward.
that's fine. That's excellent. Thank you, Delia. Okay, Councillor Kelly Wilson, you look like you was going to put something together there before I interrupted you. Can't hear you, Councillor Kelly Wilson.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Sorry. So I was just about to say, I propose that we give authority to the clerk to enter into an agreement with the Youth Network MK for the ongoing Lakes Community Centre Youth Club that's currently at the Warren, and also at Newton Lees Pavilion for those to go ahead, and also to form a service level agreement for any other work that is ongoing between us two. So authority for the first 2 to go ahead straight away so we can get organised for September, and also for the 3rd item, which is around an SLA for all the other works, to be brought back to a future council meeting for discussion.
Lovely, thank you. Do we have a seconder for that? I've got Councillor Graham.
Second it. I'll second.
Thank you. Okay, if nobody's got any further questions or comments, I will move to the vote. All those in favour of this motion? Okay, I have that as everybody. That's unanimous. Unanimous. That's lovely. So that go through for you, Debbie, and thank you again for the work that you do.
Go now then, if that's okay.
That's it. Yeah, that's fine. Thank you very much.
Right.
Thank you
Bye-bye.
very much. Okay, we now move on to item 12, which is to receive a report on the Bletchley and Fenny Stratford Neighbourhood Plan and to elect councillors to join the steering group. Okay, so we're going to look at the steering group because we need a small number of councillors to join this, and I understand that Delia has got a small presentation.
Yeah, I'm just trying to share it actually. So just to sort of recap on where we're up to with the neighbourhood plan. As you know,
not sharing. Is it supposed to be sharing?
It is supposed to be sharing. Yes.
I can't see it. I don't know whether anyone else can see it.
Anybody see it?
No.
No. Okay, I'll try again.
I'll tell you when it appears.
Okay, thank you. I mean, it is in the pack, so we can go through it without screen sharing if necessary. So we seem to be having a lot of technical issues today.
Yeah, my computer's gone off again.
There you go.
Is that sharing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're there. That's good.
Good. So this slide, the first slide shows what we've achieved so far. If you remember that by during the lockdown period, we were happy to note that the delegated decision by Milton Keynes Council went ahead, approving the designation of the area that we'd submitted for the new neighbourhood plan. And there was one. There were a couple of objections to the area, but one was serious, and one was perhaps a misunderstanding about the nature of the neighbourhood plan process. So although we haven't made the progress we would have liked, since March, you can see that we have made quite a bit of progress. Oh, this is a silly, I didn't mean to do this. So the impact of COVID has been that we haven't been able to, we haven't talked about the neighbourhood plan since March. Our indicative timeline has been definitely compromised. We had a meeting planned in April, which we couldn't hold. We've been keeping abreast of the guidance that's been issued by government about how neighbourhood plan work can be conducted. And there is quite a lot of work that can be done whilst observing social distancing, both as it was during the more rigorous lockdown, but also as it is now. Obviously we weren't really in a position to focus on that because we had so many other demands on our time as a council. And I think it's fair to say that work on the Bletchley Prospectus and the Central Bletchley SPD, which Milton Keynes Council are working on, was also been sort of put back a bit. There was an initial meeting of the town board in January to raise awareness of the town board and to make the town's fund and to sort of explain how the town's fund board was going to be set up. But then there hasn't been a lot of activity until July this year, so everybody's really been affected. So moving on to proposed next steps, I think the things that we need to do next are to establish a steering group to drive the neighbourhood plan forward, and obviously that group needs to be composed partly of town councillors, but also with a very representative selection of other people from within the community. And to get that process going and to devise the terms of reference and to work on how we think we can best fit the steering group into the town council framework, I think it would be really helpful if we could appoint some town councillors to that body tonight, so that I can work with the small number of town councillors to agree the terms of reference. I have prepared them, but we need, they need input from elected members, and to sort of put forward the plans for moving the steering group onwards. I've put a sort of indicative timescale there, so that if we can appoint some members tonight, then at the next town council meeting at the end of September, we should be in a position to agree the terms of reference and then move on with the selection process for additional members to join the steering group, and be well on the way with that by November. Now that might seem a bit unambitious, but I have been taking advice from the consultant that we appointed to do some initial support work, and the advice that I've had is that really we should now delay further community engagement until after the town deal bid is submitted, which is going to be in October this year. And the reasons for that delay are on the slide. The town's fund board has appointed 2 consultants, Hatch, who will be producing intelligence for the town board, economic and social intelligence, which will inform the decisions of the town board, and Hyas, who will be gathering community views as a foundation for the work of the town board. And there's going to be a lot of work undertaken by those 2 agencies in the next couple of months, and it will be possible for us to use that intelligence to sort of build on what we know already about the issues, and that will be really helpful to us. I think it's also important that we have some idea of what the scope of the town deal proposals are, and how much and what the main areas of focus will be, because it may be that the neighbourhood plan steering group will decide that as there is going to be a town deal, there's going to be an SPD for Central Bletchley. It might be that the steering group wants to concentrate on policies on areas outside the centre of Bletchley, and it would be better if we were in a slightly better, we had a bit more clarity. And also there's a danger that if we start on the community engagement work right now with an issues and options exercise, say in September, there could be a lot of confusion about the different processes with the SPD and the town deal and the neighbourhood fund, the neighbourhood plan. So based on the advice I've had, I'm suggesting to the council that we shouldn't do a community engagement consultation until November. So that's basically what I've got planned, but I'm putting that to you for approval or disapproval or questions or suggestions.
Okay, thank you, Dee. Shall we unshare it now?
Yeah.
That's it, that's better. It was, the sound was going a little bit funny. I don't know why on that. Okay, so we need to put together the steering group and for councillors to be a part of that steering group and to work on the boundaries. What was the exact word? The scope, the layout of the steering group and their proposals. It should be, I don't think it should be more than 4 councillors, but they've got to be prepared to give up time to do this and be able to put the time in and to be able to do a lot of the reports and consolidating all the information to put that report together. Okay, so it's not something that someone should undertake lightly, because I think it needs quite a lot of commitment to it if we're to be successful in getting that steering group up and running. Okay, so does anyone wish to speak or make a comment? Okay, I've got, oh, he's disappeared. I had Councillor Hume with, Councillor Hume, you had your hand up, sorry. You're back now.
Yeah, I think Councillor Kelly Wilson had his hand up first. If he,
okay.
Shall I go first? Yeah, I mean, I think the plans seem fine. I would be happy to agree that. I think they're sensible, especially waiting until some of the town board stuff is completed. My only concern is that, yeah, no, when the town board stuff is completed, that should be fine. In terms of nominations for the steering committee, I am happy to put myself forward for that, understanding the time commitment.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hume. Sorry, Councillor Kelly Wilson.
So I think good presentation, really happy with this. I've also looked at the Gantt chart which was connected to the item, and you know, I'm a little concerned that of the length of time that this will take, and would love to see if there is any scope for the time to be reduced, because I think there is lots of, you know, this is something that you know, the council should have already. I think, and you know, for various reasons we've not been able to do that, but it's good that we're doing it now. I'm also really happy to be involved in the steering committee, and I think it would be really good if if we were able to involve, you know, different communities within Bletchley and Fenny Stratford, because although you know, I do feel that, you know, what people might want and need in Newton Lees might be very different from other areas, and so I think it's good to get that cross section from the councillors.
Thank you, Councillor Kelly Wilson. Anybody else wish to speak? Councillor Ely.
Thank you, Chair. I just think that it's important that the steering group is set up fairly soon. It doesn't have to interfere with the board in any way, but I think that it needs to be set up quickly so that it can take a view of what is going on around it with the other activities. I'm happy to sit on the steering group, or if that's available. But I think that what's been said is that to include other people, the general public, the people that live in Bletchley, that's what you've got to get hold of. and get them on board, I think that would be of secondary importance at the initial stage. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. I think the idea is to set the councillors and they do the terms of reference and then bring other groups and people on board. I think that's the way I understood it to be. And maybe we do shorten that time span from the report to get those people on board rather than waiting so long. That's something we can decide this evening. Okay, Councillor Graham.
I also agree with all the rest of the councillors, and I'm quite happy to put my name forward to sit on the steering group.
Okay. I think well done to everyone who wants to put their name forward. I think there's quite a lot of work involved with putting together the terms of reference, and there will be a lot of report writing and presentations as that group takes off and comes into its own. So, you know, thank you for coming forward. Okay, we've got 4 people that wish to be on the steering group. Is there anyone else that wishes to be on the steering group? Okay, are we happy to agree this evening, those 4 members? Yeah, all those in favour of the 4 members? Okay, that's everybody. So they're the 4 members: Councillor Hume, Councillor Kelly-Wilson, Councillor Ely and Councillor Graham. Okay, so do you want us to agree the time span or alterations to the time span, Delia?
Well, I think that the first thing that was on the slides was to come back on the 29th of September with the draft terms of reference and the procedure for appointing of the members to the steering group, and clarity about the way the relationship between the steering group and the town council. So if that can be agreed in September, then I think we're well placed to move on from that point.
Okay. Is everybody happy with that? I can see everyone nodding, so I'm assuming that everyone's happy. Okay, so that's that item of the agenda done. Is that correct, Delia? That's all you needed on that?
That's all I needed, yes. Yes.
Okay, so I'm now moving on to item 14, which is to receive a report on the War Memorial event on the 11th of November.
Yes, Chairman, that's on the supplementary agenda.
Yeah.
Jill's prepared this report.
Okay, Jill.
Obviously, I don't want to say that everything I'm saying is negative. Obviously, Milton Keynes Council have made it quite clear that they're not going to give permission for any events at the moment because they're following current guidance of COVID-19. So with that in mind, we just need to make some plans maybe for the memorial, which is not that too far away from that point of view. Obviously, normally we have a silent walk from Elizabeth Square. The current guidance would not allow us to have any road closures because Milton Keynes Council wouldn't agree it, and any gathering in Elizabeth Square would be against current COVID-19 guidance anyway. So it's really trying and come to a agreement of what we can plan at the moment, and if anything changes, then maybe we can expand on it. I did look at the Royal British Legion, and they've cancelled everything so far this year except the cenotaph, which they're going to be reviewing later on in the autumn. So whether that's going to go ahead. So it was a proposal really about what the council wanted to do, and there were some suggestions that we could still, as a town council, lay a wreath about 9:30 in the morning. We could stream that live on Facebook, and then make it quite clear to the community that actually this is not an event because we can't have people gathering. There's 2 reasons for that: one, for the COVID-19 guidance, and 2, because the safety on the roads. There'll be no road closure, so people would be on the pavement. But obviously, we would maybe make people aware that once the wreath has been laid by the town council, then obviously the memorial is open for anyone else to come and lay it. It's difficult to try and work out a better way of getting everyone to be able to come and lay their wreaths without actually having an event planned. That's the trouble, which we won't get permission for, unfortunately, at the moment. So and try and do it safely. So it was really to try and see what the town council would be willing to put in place for now. But then if we are then able to do anything more than that, then we can build on that towards nearer the time.
Okay, thank you, Jill. Can I just ask a quick question? Could we have it that obviously the town council lays their wreath and maybe key people that's no more than 5 lay their wreaths at the same time, or is that against the COVID-19 rules?
No, the COVID-19 rules, I did put down what the current ones on there. So for anything that's organised, it is no more than 30 people, but that's in private houses and gardens, which this is not. There are some rules regarding community activities or religious ceremonies, of which it's not a religious ceremony, unfortunately, because that relates to churches and weddings, for example. But the rules still apply with regards to no more than 30 from no more than, I think, if they're quite difficult to understand, 1 or 2 households. It's very difficult even for us to go and lay a wreath in 2s for anybody at the moment. So technically gatherings are not meant to be any more than a couple of households if it's 30, if you've got a household with more than 15 people.
Okay, so if a town council laid a wreath, could be that the person, would we be able to have a bugler if they were far apart, just as a respect?
You could. We have to be mindful that might attract a gathering, and we wouldn't be, like I said, we wouldn't be able to do anything like road closures. That's only my concern of health and safety from that point of view. But yes, we could have a bugler standing there, and we could lay a wreath, and we could stream it. We could still do that. We just wouldn't necessarily be able to have a service, a bugler.
But without the service, without the silent walk, but we could have a wreath laying and a bugler and streaming it.
We could stream it, and then we could make it quite clear that from 10 o'clock in the morning, for example, the memorial was now open for anyone else to come and lay their wreaths, and make sure we remind them of the social distancing rules.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, so does anybody have any questions on that? Councillor Hume and then Councillor Kelly-Wilson.
I will learn one day to press the unmute button. I do it all the time with work meetings as well, so it's not just unique to this. Yeah, I think we need to be mindful of the current restrictions. They're there for our safety, they're there for our community safety. One thing does worry me slightly, that if suddenly, knowing our government, this could well be the case, 7 days before Remembrance Sunday, they suddenly go, "Oh, we can relax the rules and you can do more." I just want to make sure that we've made a decision that actually we can put on as much as we would do normally in a short period of time as practically possible, or opt to what we're allowed to do at that particular time in case those rules change very quickly. And we know they do. We know the government changes them, and they flip-flop all the time.
Yes, thank you. I forgot to say actually, and also to agree a cut-off date for changing the rules and changing the accommodation. So I agree with you, trying to get the school open and everything else done. It's done already by now, and it's all in place. So yeah, to agree at a time when we won't make any more changes to it, no matter what the government decides to change, and then change again, possibly.
Okay, does anybody else? Councillor Kelly-Wilson?
I liked your suggestion, Chair, about the bugler. I think it's awful what's going on at the moment with regards to coronavirus, but we have been honouring our dead for at least 102 years, isn't it? And even during the Second World War, people were still having these things, and it feels like we are having a bit of a war on coronavirus. But actually, we still need to honour these people who took a sacrifice for their country. And I think we should, event's the wrong word, but I think we should continue to pay our respects in a really respectful way. And for me, I think I would like to have the bugler and for the wreaths to be laid, and but whilst maintaining whatever rules that we have to do. Yeah.
Okay. Councillor Ely?
With what Ed and Nathan have said, I would go for the first suggestion with the bugler. And if members wanted to turn up at 9:30 and stand across the other side of the road, socially distanced, without inviting the general public, I think that would show our respects, give the views, stream it by all means, but let's do something the maximum we possibly can. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. So I think we've got a good steer there, Jill, to have the bugler and to lay the wreath. And as Councillor East said, as long as it's social distancing, even if it's across the road for the councillors, but stream it on Facebook and then make a announcement that people can go down there and pay their respects throughout the day. Is everybody happy with that? I think everyone's happy with that, so I think that's steer. Thank you very much for that, Jill.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item is item 15, to receive a report on the new community larder model. Again, Jill, this is from yourself.
Yes, I'm really busy. We've reported before that we do the delivery boxes on a Tuesday, which is the funding from the local central government. That's actually done with a partner, Sophia, and the Walving Church. The funding finishes on the 31st of August to Sophia. And part of the next steps for the community larder is a model that's been running in Oxfordshire prior to COVID. It's where the people can become a member of the community larder. Anyone can become a member, and it's £3.50 a week if you're an individual, or £7 a week if you're a family. The basically works is you pay your money by direct debit every month, and you come along on a designated day and you pick your items of food. So currently you get a box, and you get all you get in the box. But from whenever this starts, you would come along and pick your items. So £3.50, you get to pick 10 ambient items plus any fruit or veg that's available. And for £7, you get to pick 20 items. So it actually equates to £3.50 equates to about £12 to £15 a week of food. I was quite fortunate to visit the warehouse last Tuesday with Reverend Hallett from the Walter Eaton Church, and we were taken on a tour of the warehouse, and I was quite astounded by the quantity of food that's in the warehouse. It is not all food that's going out of date by any chance. It is actually surplus food that all the shops have that they have no room to store. So when their next delivery comes in, they have no, because most shops nowadays don't have any storage facilities. So when the stuff comes in, stuff goes out the door. So we went in there, and I think I put it in the report, went in one part, and there was some stacks, there was some crates full of steak that were still had 11 days left to go on their best before date. And all this food, if it wasn't given out, would go on landfill, and it would go on landfill in its packaging. So from a point of view of, there's two things. One, it helps those people whose income could be limited because they're struggling financially. Personally, I'd be happy to sign up for this on the basis that I will be saving tons and tons, not personally saving tons of food, but it's something from our climate change challenge where we'll be saving a lot of food going to landfill. There was a link to a video I put on there for YouTube, which is the Oxfordshire Community Larder, which was started before COVID. The whole idea would be they also deliver wraparound services, but currently under COVID that wouldn't quite work at the moment. But it would just be for a community larder. So Walter Eaton Church are really, really keen to do this with us, and we would like to continue to do the work in the community with the larder. We've had a number of discussions with myself, the clerk, and the church about what possibly we could continue to do. We already supply time already for administration, and it would be the options would be for us to continue to offer some officer support, just one day a week, or one afternoon a week actually, for them to help out with their admin. They would like to continue doing the boxes for an additional week because we haven't got enough time. Unfortunately, the 1st September falls on a Tuesday, which is our day. So it means that we almost lose out on a week. So the only way we can continue delivering free boxes is if someone pays for them for the 1st September. And then there's also the opportunity to set up a discretionary fund, so that those people that can't afford their first month's costs can have it paid for them by any donations, because anyone can donate to the food bank, to the community larder. They can make donations to help out. We can have other food coming in that can be given out. We can have other services given out at the same time. So basically the proposal would be, or if to be discussing, is to allow us to continue some officer support on a weekly basis, which can be incorporated in existing staff roles. But as we are working in the cloud, if for any reason we weren't very busy, we can still continue to work remotely. To discuss the option to fund the additional set of boxes on the 1st September, that would cost about £322. And then to consider investing in the community larder with a fund aimed at supporting those most vulnerable individuals, which would need to be identified that they couldn't afford the first month, on the basis you have to pay the month in advance, unfortunately, in order to get it. I think is a really great opportunity for us to get involved in something that's going to cover the whole community. We currently deliver to mostly on the Lakes Estate, but we do deliver as far as West Bletchley. We need to make a decision quite quickly because we've got to do some advertising between now and the 1st September to when the model starts. And I was like I said, I was quite astounded by the amount of food that is just generally thrown away by the shops, just because they haven't logistically got it in a way where they can get their orders coming in perfectly on time. You know, there was crates and crates and crates of mangoes and courgettes that were perfectly in good condition, and then packs of beef steak and butter and cheese and everything else just would have gone to waste. So that's what I'd like to for the council to discuss, if possible, for those 3 options.
Can I just ask you, at the moment, we deliver the food parcels on Tuesday. Do we continue to do that, or will they have to go to the centre and pick their food? Because you said you have to pick it.
The model is for people to go to the centre and choose the food they want. However, you can nominate up to 3 people to do that on your behalf. So that can be anybody. So if you're not able to come, you could nominate a friend or a relative to come and do that for you.
Okay.
But
where's the centre that they have to go?
The Waltreaton Church Centre.
So the food will get taken there and you can go and pick it there. That's fine. Okay, I've got it now. Okay, Councillor Hume.
I should have done this at the beginning of the meeting and at this item, but I am a member and on the electoral roll at St. Fives Church at Waltreaton Church Centre, which is this about. It wouldn't be a pecuniary interest, so I don't believe that would, and I'm looking at the clerk, I don't believe that would stop me from being involved in this discussion or any vote.
No, that would be fine.
Should I make my comments now then? Or,
yeah, go ahead.
I think it's good. I mean, I'm shocked by the amount of food waste. It's absolutely shocking. It's kind of the model that the supermarkets use, and it's crazy that it allows for so much waste. And I think it's the right thing to do. I think it makes food a bit more affordable, and it helps with our ideals of becoming a carbon neutral and green town. So in that sense, I think we should absolutely support this and we should go for it.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hume. Councillor Kelly Wilson.
Unmute. Thank you. I think this is a great idea. I was looking, so the one thing that I thought was, obviously it's very difficult for people at the moment, and a lot of people have been relying on these boxes and also the boxes that were being sent out by government directly from the Operation Shield. And I thought, is there something that we can actually do, not to give them 1 week's notice, but actually to cover the first 4 weeks, so we can actually transition. Because for what I'm reading from your report, is a week is £322 for the council, and actually it would give a lot more time to do all of the sign-ups than a week, and I think it would be really helpful and well received, and actually it's very low investment from the council for the impact it would have.
Okay. So is that a proposal, Councillor Kelly-Wilson?
I will propose it if any, but obviously you can come back to me once everyone else has said their point.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Councillor Ely.
I'd certainly second that, Ethan. Can I ask you to accept an amendment with an additional? You mentioned, Jill, about the discretionary fund that may be needed. Can I add to your motion, Ethan, that the fact that we should have a discretionary fund? We can decide the figure in a moment, and that can be used at the discretion, I would suggest, of the chair of the council and the chair of finance, and by their agreement with the clerk, that discretionary fund could be distributed purely for the larder purposes.
Can I make an amendment to your amendment? Which is, I think that you know, with a lot of these people, with a lot of the people that are using it, actually we want to make it really easy for the discretionary fund to be accessed, and I think that, you know, we should delegate to the staff team that you know, if someone comes to the staff team, because they've been involved all summer, they know the people that have been visiting, and I think that we should give authority to them to access the discretionary fund up to a certain amount, so that we haven't got to go through lots of levels of councillors in order to get a family some food.
I'm just trying to protect the staff, Ethan, because if you're not careful, you can put the staff under strain and pressure from other people.
Accepted.
Leave it at that.
Can I just?
Yeah, one of the things I was going to say was that the discretionary fund is held by Sophia, and then when someone signs up, what the proposal is that we put a discount code in, which would then discount the first months of their food. But we would have to have a policy in place to agree who would and who necessarily wouldn't meet the criteria for the discretionary fund. So we have briefly talked about whether it be, I don't want to go down the route of means testing at all, because that's just gets too complicated. There are certain key benefits and key types of situations where we could just apply it based on a framework of a policy, which would then protect both us and the individuals, I think.
Okay, but I think what we're saying is we're going to give 4 weeks worth of food free before they have to sign up, and then have a discretionary fund on top of that. Is that correct?
Yes, possibly. If you're mindful of paying for 4 weeks worth of deliveries, that would give us even much more time to get more people signed up, more advertising, more media out for that. That would be brilliant. And then that as the community larder builds pace, when people come to become members, then individuals may be able to, like I said, you have to pay in advance for your first month's worth, and some people obviously don't have that money straight away. So the discretionary fund would be used for those type of people. So
okay, yeah. So that's okay.
So can I make a proposal then that mindful of the bits that Keith has said, which I've completely forgotten, but I think it's something like this. We're proposing to fund £1,300 to cover 4 weeks deliveries. I've rounded up a little bit, and also can I propose that we have a discretionary fund set for the year of 2,500 at this stage, but for the officer team to come back with a policy that we can discuss at a future meeting.
Can I also ask, just devil's advocate here, the ones that go to West Bletchley, what happens with those if they're coming out of the town council's funds? How do we stand on that, Delia?
I think there may be people coming from wider afield, because there's only, I think, currently about 4 community larders that are going to start, or 5 in the whole city. So there are, I think, 3 are over on the north. 1 is MK Dons, but they're only going to be open to their own sport education trust members, and then there'll be ours. So that there may be that we will have people coming to the community larder from way outside our parish, but it's whether you want the
Can I make a
policy
change to my proposal? I don't know whether other councillors will accept it, but I feel that our funding can only be used for Bletchley and Fen Stratford Town Council residents.
I agree.
I support the scheme and accept everything, you know, people from outside, but I think that we shouldn't be funding things for other town councils.
Yeah.
I'd be quite happy to go to other town parish councils and maybe ask them to do the same. Then if they want to also make a discretionary fund to the Sophia to be used in the same way for their residents if they so wish.
Yeah, because I'm a bit concerned that we can't do that, and that is correct, isn't it, Delia?
I think it's important that the people who've contributed to the precept, the people who benefit.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hume.
I'm not having a good night with the mute button. Maybe it's a sign that I shouldn't talk so much. I'm in agreement with that. And my only question is, delivery wise, are we delivering someone to residents of West Bletchley at the moment, or was that coming from? Do we know how many is that? Is that 2 families? Is it?
It is approximately 10 families a week, I believe. Okay. I haven't got the list in front of me, but it's about 10 families.
I'm just thinking about the transition arrangements and whether it's something that actually just might be worth just a conversation either with the church centre or maybe West Bletchley Parish Council, and just seeing if there's any support that can be done. I'm sure between one of those 2 organisations may well be able to help.
Okay. Yes, as I said, anyone can donate to the charity, to the community larder, and there's already been a donation already from somebody to support it from an individual in the parish. So anyone can make an individual private contribution anyway, and the community larder can therefore use it in any way they see fit, from a point of view of, could be equipment, could be services, could be extra food, anything.
Okay, thank you, Jill. So if I get your motion correctly, then Councillor Kelly Wilson, it is to sponsor for Bletchley and Fen Stratford Town Council residents, to sponsor it for 4 weeks, and then to have a concessionary fund of 2,500.
Yeah.
And for a policy to use that fund to be put forward by the staff in conjunction with the church centre.
Yeah.
And Sophia.
Yeah. Is that sums it up, Councillor Wilson?
Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, do you have a seconder to that? Councillor Ely. Okay, all those in favour? Okay, I have that as everybody in favour of that, so that is carried. That's really good work, Jill. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Okay.
I should be leaving you now for the next item. So. Okay,
thank you. Bye.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're now going to go to item 12 is to receive a report. No, that's not it. Where am I?
I think it's item 13.
13. To consider a further confidential matter to the Standards Committee of Milton Keynes Council. I would like to move that this part of the meeting is done in confidential session. All those in favour? Anybody against? I have 1 against. Anyone abstaining? Okay, so that's carried that we move into confidential session.
In that case, I'll stop the screening if you could just bear with me for a moment, please.